This first person says, I think I've spent so much time preparing to start things that I've accidentally become someone who mostly just plans. I would research, organize, watch videos, take notes, but actually beginning to feels very scary for some reason. How do you tell the difference between being thoughtful versus just avoiding failure? That is a good question. And that's something that I can relate to. I am a therapist in training, and the feedback that I'm giving here is not so much from a clinical perspective, but rather from a out of the office perspective. And I am someone that does require, I do a lot of overthinking. And in some ways, I find that it helps me personally. And the way that a really good friend of mine phrased it was, you can trust yourself because you overthink so much. Meaning, I've probably thought about a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different possibilities, a lot of different outcomes. And so, seeing the overthinking, seeing the preparation, seeing the research as you trying to get as much information, as much feedback. And I do think that that process is necessary. I think the overthinking is necessary. I think being stuck is necessary. And I think it's all part of the process to get you to where you want to go. And then at some point, there has to be that element of a question that I often ask my clients at my clinical work, and I also ask myself is, do you trust yourself? Because sometimes the repetition of constantly organizing and doing the background stuff, but not taking the actual action is coming from a place of not trusting yourself. And so the question is, do you trust yourself? Are you going to be able to hold space for yourself, be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself if you do all the research, you do all the work, and the calculations don't calculate, the math doesn't match. Sometimes you can have everything in line, and it doesn't mean that the desired outcome is going to be what you desire, but it is part of the learning process. And I think that oftentimes that information is never lost. I think in some ways it ends up coming back in a different way. There's certain things that I've started to do or maybe not even completed to do, and it's taught me something about myself in some way, shape, and form that maybe has helped me 5 years later. In the moment, it wasn't relevant, but in some ways it ended up coming back. So also knowing that again, it's okay to be in the constant researching phase. And I think it's part of the process. To be stuck is part of the process, and that's okay. And then at some point, it is important to then say, okay, do I trust myself? Am I willing to sit with the implications that will come with this decision, the not so great parts of it, the really wonderful parts of it? And am I willing and open to being kind with myself? Because most times it's not that we fear the decision itself or taking the action, it's that we're scared of the consequences or the implications it would have. Um, and so, when it comes to how do you tell the difference between being thoughtful versus avoiding failure, I would say when it comes to being thoughtful, is again, it's part of the process to have those details. But at some point, you have to take action. And when you're not willing to take action, I think, and you're stuck in that loop of engaging in the background work, then I think then that's what it looks like to be afraid of failure. We have our second scenario. It says, I know comparison is unhealthy. Yeah, I felt that. But sometimes LinkedIn genuinely makes me feel like I am late in life. Everyone seems so accomplished about certain about their path while I'm still figuring out who I am in real time. For one, comparison is healthy. I don't think that that is necessarily a bad thing. I think it more so is a it is what it is kind of thing. I think as human beings, we're social creatures. We're bound to kind of compare ourselves to other people, question our timeline, and see, is the math thing, myself in comparison to so and so person who was born in the same year. I think that's okay, and I think that's normal. At the same time, I do think it is important to feel like, are you late in life, and not late in life in the context of fitting into a certain idea of like a checklist of where you're supposed to be in life, but rather are you late in life in terms of the life that you want to, that you desire for yourself. And as I mentioned previously, being in that loop, being stuck is part of the process. But what is the plan? What is the plan long term, to kind of go towards the desired things that you want? I found that there's a lot of discourse online about jealousy. And again, I don't think jealousy is necessarily a bad thing or an unhealthy thing. I think it becomes unhealthy when you start to treat yourself badly and or treat the people that you're jealous of badly because of how you feel. But I think to feel whatever emotions you feel is okay as human. Um, and oftentimes sometimes what you see in other people that you like or that you admire can be a sign of what you see in yourself and what you know to be possible for yourself. And so, something that I've actually done in the past, this was some years back. I would, people who I really admire in their life they seem to really have it together. And Instagram, I guess Instagram is, I don't really compare myself on social media as much as I used to, honestly. I don't maybe it's because of the prefrontal development, I don't know, but I really don't. I mean, I still do, but not as often as I used to when I was much younger. Um, but I will say that for me, what I used to do when there was a lot more comparison was like, what are they doing? Like I would literally slide in DMs and I would be like, yo, you seem to be really good at so so and so and so. Can I ask how you're able to do so so and so? And typically people are very open to giving you honest feedback about how they do what they do, how they got to where they're in whatever aspect, right? It can be related to jobs, it can be related to beauty, it can be related to joining a certain organization or club or event or sports or gym routine, etc. And just genuinely asking people straight up, like, I admire so so and so and so. I like so so and so. And I want to learn from you. And they would literally give me really wonderful feedback, some of which I still use to today. So I would say if there are people who you're like, how are they doing what they're doing? Like genuinely asking them, how are you doing what you're doing? And what can I learn from said experience? And in terms of, do people feel as confident as they look online? I don't think that matters. And not to dismiss or to belittle that question in any way, but kind of my my instinct. I don't know if this is my therapy influence, is to kind of turn that question back on you and say, what does it look like to be confident? What does confidence look like for you in your specific life? So it's not so much about is it true or is it not true, but rather what does confidence look like for you? What are some specific actions that you need to take that would increase your confidence? Because when you're able to watch yourself do certain things that maybe you didn't think you could do, it also increases your confidence in return as well.